Our scripture today comes from the Gospel of Matthew. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "So could you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again he went away for the 2nd time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the 3rd time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand."
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, Lord, strength and our peace. Hello. Verb 2 sounds. Well, this being the 3rd week of our prayer series, entering the 4th week, I'm just kind of curious now, realizing we have a number of visitors today, and we also have welcome to those who are joining us from volunteering for the community comfort. Realize we have that, and we also have a number of procrastinators here today, too, probably. How many of you have, during this series, been actively how many of you have been actively praying? Trying to listen for God. Okay, great. And now, how many of you have, realizing that God's timetable is not our own, and sometimes these things take time, how many have felt like, in the best of their judgment anyway, that they've received some sort of response spiritually? It's kind of amazing, isn't it? Basically, not everybody, like I say, God's timetable isn't ours, but it's amazing when we get intentional about this, how often a response actually comes. Now, all of you probably could have raised your hands, actually, if you would just count yesterday how many times you maybe have said, "Help them, Jesus," during the game. All right, so we've been putting up little streamers on that loom outside the door. If you've sensed a response, you may need to do that. Now, the passage that you heard with Jesus, really approaching his impending death, is being tortured and killed, probably fits the Halloween season better than the Thanksgiving season we're about to enter into. But the reason it was chosen is because it precisely fits the prayer series. It is, in the Gospels, there are a number of references to times when Jesus got out of the fray and he prayed. He sometimes all night long. All kinds of references to that. And it's evident that Jesus worked hard in that. I mean, that he, a lot of people think that Jesus had this chip in the back of his neck. He just kind of downloaded God's voice, and it was always very clear for him. But the Gospels show a very different story. He's always going out, trying to figure out, trying to listen to those voices. It was hard for Jesus, and which gives me some, personally, it kind of is relieving, because it's hard for me too. And so when I see it's hard for Jesus, I don't feel like such an imbecile, or so just completely stupid. That Jesus had to work at this. But because Jesus had to work at this, it also tells me that when I get up in the morning and I'm just going to rush, I'm just going to offer 30 seconds of prayer up and just figure that does me for the day, that maybe it's going to take a little longer if I really, truly want to try to flow with that Spirit. try to discern God's will for my life. That it takes work, and it's hard, but it's not impossible. So what was Jesus trying to do during all those hours of prayer? What was he up to? Well, the passage this morning actually gives us a bit of a window, a rare window actually in the Gospels of what he was doing. But one of the things he was like, and we'll get to that, but one of the things he was very likely doing was doing what you were doing last week if you took us up on the invitation to partake in this prayer exercise. Every week we've been passing out cards in the bulletins, and if you didn't get one this morning, there are more out on the information station. But we've been encouraging you to write down a question that's central to your life right now, something that matters to you, that's specific to you. And then last week we had all these different voices that occur within our heads, and we encourage you to write in the voice of each one of those voices. And it's amazing how many times it can shake a deep insight loose just through doing a simple exercise like this. Likely Jesus was doing something similar. He didn't have the prayer cards, but likely Jesus was trying to sort out those many voices that occur to us. When we say Jesus was fully divine, there are a lot of people say, well, I don't know. But nobody says, I don't know about whether he was human. And because he was human, he had these voices. You have voices inside your heads, tons of them. Jesus did too. And they're hard to sort out. And Jesus had to spend time sorting out those voices. Because one of the things that Scripture consistently says is that God's voice is within those voices. They're to be found there. In fact, Augustine would say that we can never really get to know God beyond our level of self-awareness. That the path to knowing God and the path to knowing ourselves is the same path. But not all those voices are necessarily helpful, but they are those deep archetypal voices. We share a lot of those voices, you and I, together, and with Jesus. Those are the voices that make up the great Greek myths. They're the voices that we find in animal spirits and Indian legends. They're the voices that we see in the great comedies and tragedies of opera. They're the voices that that psychologists deal with when they develop personality inventories like the Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram or even the Gallup Strengths Finder. They're all dealing with these deep archetypal voices that occur to all of us and how we respond to them. Jesus would have been taking time to listen to those voices within. Now, at worship team this last Wednesday, we were kind of digesting all this and realizing that it's probably we could all use a bit more practice with these voices. They don't come easily. We have them, they're so much in our head that we're not used to picking them apart, taking the time to actually sense, this is the voice of the free child within me or the parent and so forth. So we thought what we'd do this morning is actually give those voices, the 9 archetypes that we lifted up last week, which are also on your blue cards this morning, a pass 3 times in 3 very, very, very different ways. The first way, our very newest worship team member, Marge Bennett, showed up this last Wednesday for the first time to worship team, and she had taken the exercise seriously last week, and because it's stewardship season, she actually applied that to trying to figure out how she should pledge. And she'd written that out, and we were so impressed by that, how helpful it was, that we all asked her, could you do it on Sunday morning? And she said, sure. And so she's going to do that. And then we're going to turn to we're going to test ourselves then and give ourselves a chance to experience these in film. For many years, I've used a series of film clips that illustrate one of these voices. And last week, my friend Scott Grissell edited them down into a succinct just compilation of these voices. And so we'll get a chance to kind of see, can you identify the voice in this clip or this clip? And then finally, I'm going to go where angels fear to tread and actually dare to speculate on what voices may have been in Jesus' head on that night in the Garden of Gethsemane. So let's start with Marge.
I titled this piece, Beyond Compare. It's always about money. When wanting to follow my bliss, I hesitate. How much will it cost? As I try to shape a full life, I am indecisive. Is there enough? Why must it always come back to the amount of coins jingling in the bank account? Why does the dollar amount hold so much sway over me? There must be another way to balance my longings. There must be another way to give to others without the reluctance. Why can't I listen to my heart? Why can't I believe it when it tells me all is well? What do you mean all is well? You didn't listen to me when I told you that career wouldn't make you any money. Your father and I knew we'd have to support you for the rest of our lives. Don't you ever think about someone else besides yourself? Oh, come on. You can't take it with you. What are you so concerned about? You only live once. Spend it where and whenever you want to. There's plenty to go around. Chill out, kid. Hey, we all pledged 10% because that's what you're supposed to do. Remember what they taught us about tithing? You'll get it back sevenfold or something like that. All you have to do is give more than you think you can. It's good karma. I looked over your bank account stats yesterday. You aren't saving enough. That new car made your insurance rates go up and winter is coming, and you know what that does to your heating bills. You can't be so giving anymore. There won't be enough to take care of yourself if you continue being so generous. Come on, you know it's true. There you go again. You made the mistake of following your instinct. That money you saved isn't going to last you long unless you figure something out. You should have known better. You always do this. It never fails that when you act on impulse, you regret it later. Man, are you a loser. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. Are you kidding me? You're listening to Gandhi and Mother Teresa and the Dalai Lama? You, the one who believes that all things work for your highest good. You, the one who believes that love will solve everything in the end. You have no idea how things really work in the world. Your money is worthless. Why waste it on promoting peace? Why waste it here? Your paltry gift is inconsequential in the big scheme of things. You can do nothing for humankind. Don't even try. I know that's not true. And you know it to the depths of your being that it's not true. And what I know for certain is that you can do something small and have it mean a lot. You can change much with a gathering of many who see good as inherent in all beings. Your offerings will be gratefully received. Your gifts are good and acceptable and perfect. You will make a difference here. Give what you can. You listen to many voices. It's time to step away for a moment. Take a breath. Breathe in and breathe out. Better? Now, listen. Listen closer. Listen deeper. Listen not with your ears, but with all your heart, with the deepest part of yourself, your soul. Listen for the truth. There is enough. There will always be enough. You will make wise choices, and your choices will fill you with contentment. Your bliss cancels out the potential debt. Let your life be filled with all that supports you, with all that brings you laughter, and all that allows you to expand your consciousness. Calm the voices. Return to your breath, to your own truth. Return to who you long to be and already are. And in doing so, your life will be rich beyond compare.
It's amazing how many of those voices are in our heads at any given time, them and many more. And how they don't always agree with each other, and they're always kind of vying for to influence the chairperson of the board, which is our truest self, and which way to go. They sometimes fight with each other. Well, we're going to try to take this from another direction now through experiencing these voices in film. And if you have a blue card, you can always you refer to this because there's going to be no notations of true self and all that. But just see if you can kind of identify some of the voices here. Now, warning: there's a language issue in this film. This set of film clips. The word butthead comes out in one of the clips. So if your children or whatever can't handle hearing butthead in the I just said it again in the film clip, then you might want to just shut their ears like this. But otherwise, it's a pretty safe compilation. But let's simply now. Oh, I can hear those accuser voices now coming right at me. Wait a minute. Let's experience these voices in film.
Everybody's got something to say about poetry. Because rhymes peak in meaning, shedding light on our unspeakables. For an ample example, take the other day when I sat not knowing how to write a poem, and assuming I was fruitlessly booming the thin air, I yelled and spat my frustration. How do I start?
Move along there, you big buttheads!
No need for all this wolf nonsense, young'un. All a nice little pig like you need do is ask.
My dog looks up from her water dish and says, I hate to encroach on your artistic space, because I know you're like in the zone or whatever, but if you really want my advice, here it is. And then my dog says, poet, breathe now.
The 1961 Ferrari 250 GT, California. Less than 100 were made. My father spent 3 years restoring this car. He knows the mileage, Ferris.
He doesn't trust you?
Never has, never will.
Look, this is real simple. Whatever miles we put on, we'll take off.
How?
We'll drive home backwards.
Poet, breathe now, because there's a fire inside you that needs oxygen to burn, and if you don't run out of breath, you're gonna run out of time.
One of you said to me recently that we shouldn't rock the boat. Over lynchings like this, we should let the family have their quiet grief. It is best at a time like this. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that I am a boat rocker. What do these murders have in common besides their brutality? They have in common that the perpetrators acted with impunity, knowing that not one of you would dare come forward and say, this will not stand.
Poet, breathe now, because once the spot gets packed, you gotta save that air for screaming. Your inhalation takes saviorisms to sky highs. You gotta go with the flowing of your own voice.
What would you like for Christmas?
I want an official Red Ryder Carbine Action 200 range ball air rifle.
Ooh, no. Shoot your eye out.
Oh no, it was the classic mother BB gun block. You'll shoot your eye out.
Pulsative passages passing the mic, and hot hallelujahs when verses you write, and your sin is your savior, your song is your life, and your words are like wonders to wandering fifes. Pipe and ceremony, poets you man, words you wife, and your honeymoon orbits around your love like metronomic metros, keeping time to the heartbeat of your heavenly drums.
Gloomy old Eeyore, being stuffed with sawdust, had lost his tail again.
Eeyore, this won't hurt.
Never does.
Ooh. There now, did I get your tail back on properly, Eeyore?
No matter. Most likely lose it again anyway.
Poet, breathe now, because you might have something to say, because peace might depend on your peace, because you breathe, and there might help your brain tell your heart to keep pumping one more cycle, and that blood might help your lips form one last word that hits the audience hard, because we are all made from the same elements, and we all breathe the same air.
You're here for cosmetic purposes, Bob.
What do you mean?
You're here to represent research, technical support, the brains of the company.
Me? Absolutely. Oh, but I don't have that much experience.
Oh, well, that doesn't matter. You as a person don't really matter, Bob. It's what you represent.
Our sounds pound mics like hope stars, like we are still here. Hollows we make, angels of our nightclubs, bards of our bums, outlooks of our outcast, and infinity of our sums. We are the children of empathy, the pathos of slums. We heal like Helios, like cyclical drums. We enlist life from listless, and sometimes even get things done.
Come on, love a little.
Coach Hill, my daddy always said to me, if you see a good fight, get in it.
Andy, will you eat? There are starving people in China.
Good morning, Christopher Robin.
Oh, good morning, Winnie the Pooh.
If it is a good morning, which I doubt.
What we are is more important than who we are. Well, that seems kind of impersonal.
Well, of course it's impersonal, Bob. Why do you think they hold conventions in places like this? Is there anything about this place that smacks of personality to you?
You sharpen the human appetite to the point where it can split atoms with its desire. You build egos the size of cathedrals, fiber optically connect the world to every eager impulse, grease even the dullest dreams with these dollar green, gold-plated fantasies until every human becomes an aspiring emperor. Maybe it's true. Maybe God threw the dice once too often. Maybe he let us all down.
Through good times and bad, famine and feast, the villagers held fast to their traditions. Until one winter day, a sly wind blew in from the north.
Where will we find truth? Where do we start looking? Where will we find truth? We will find it.
Poet, breathe now, because once you start your piece, you can die behind that microphone, and death may be breathless, but poetry's deathless, so breath be our savior eternal. Poets, breathe once with me now. That's one poem we all wrote.
Many different voices. Many different voices. So, what kind of voices would Jesus have heard that night? Betrayal, desertion in that fateful Garden of Gethsemane. Well, realizing that nobody knows for sure, I'll tell you exactly what was on his mind. Going through that list of voices, and note that also the little window that's painted for us, this kind of the process in there. He's going to repeat something 3 times, which is really when we get to his true self, probably, that not my will but thine be done. But notice he actually goes 3 times into the garden. In our passage, he talks about how he did this, and he said, not my will but thine. Then he goes back and finds his disciples, and he goes back out and says the same thing. There's an interesting process here that's taking shape. Likely it's one that many of us experience, is that when we get the feeling of where we sense the Spirit, we also then need to test it, need to take it back and say, did I get this right? And also, if we've heard the Spirit and we've actually said, okay, not my will but thine, and we've actually sworn to follow that, the voices inside tend to change. The ones that had been negative or ran interference, all the voices except for that accuser voice are connected at their deepest level to God. They all want to follow God's will. And so when they hear it, they tend to adjust their tone. And so we're going to take 2 passes at Jesus. One, the first pass of what maybe those voices of panic may have heard. But then, after the Spirit, how might those voices have changed? So I can hear the parent, especially think of that voice that was formed in his childhood by Mary and Joseph, saying, son, poor son, this is what we had worried would happen. We knew this was leading to trouble. We urged you to come home. It's not too late. You can flee. You can come back to Nazareth. You can lay low. You can join, with Joseph being a carpenter. You can just do that until the heat kind of subsides. You can always go back to preaching, but just come home. Come home. And I can hear that free child voice responding to that parent voice saying, Mommy, Daddy, I feel so alone. I'm so confused. I'm so hurt. I wish you could be here with me now. I feel so alone. I can hear that peer group thinking especially of his disciples saying, Jesus, don't desert us. If you go to that cross, it's all over. We can't carry the load of this ministry. We don't have the wisdom that you do. If you go to that cross, it's all over. Please, don't abandon us. Save yourself at all costs. I can hear the pragmatist saying, hey man, you better wake up to reality. Quit this idealistic stuff. This is real now. This is getting serious. Remember that phrase, Johnny was right, dead right, but now he's as dead as he was right. Your death will not serve God. It will serve the religious authorities and it will serve the Romans. Save yourself. I can hear the pessimist saying, if you seek to save yourself or you go to that cross, you're going to die anyway. And by the way, this is all coming down whichever way you go. Everything you stood for, nobody's heard a word of it. Everything is coming unglued now. And I can hear the hero voice. Stand up, Jesus. At a single word from your lips, you can call forth 10,000 legions of angels. Remember your forefathers and foremothers of old. Remember the great prophets. They all predicted that the Messiah would come, seize control of the throne, and lead Israel into liberation. Stand up, Jesus. Take the throne. Take what is rightly yours and make your fathers proud. I can hear the accuser voice. You egotist. You think you're the Messiah? Look. This doesn't happen to the Messiah. No, you should just get out where you still can. If you get out while you still can, you can always just find a place far away, lay low, and look at Mary. She loves you. You could start a family with her. That's the way you can do good in the world. Be like every good Jewish person. Form a family, build it into a healthy relationship, and stay out of trouble. I can hear the Spirit. You're not going to figure out why I'm calling you to do what you're doing if you try to figure this out in your mind. Go where you hear the music, Jesus. Do you hear the music when you contemplate fleeing? Do you hear the music when you contemplate raising a family? Do you hear the music when you contemplate yourself as an egotist? Or do you hear the music at this cross? If you hear the music there, that's where you need to be. And no, this is not me killing you. This is the world killing you. This is not my judgment upon you. This is the world's. And it's not just a judgment upon you. Is it a judgment upon me? And your death is my response. Their killing you is like killing me. Your death and my death will take place at this cross. But through this cross they will hear the music that there is a power greater than death. There is a power greater than death, which is love. In the end, they will learn love wins. They will learn my response. Go where you hear the music, Jesus. And of course, I can hear Jesus because it's told to us in the Gospels. If this cup cannot be removed, then thy will be done. not my own. 3 times he comes back, and I can hear those voices within him that are not connected to the accuser voice, all starting to pick up on that voice, all starting to change their tone, which is one of the primary ways we understand that we've heard from the Spirit. Because those other voices, not maybe all of them, but many of them change in response to hearing the Spirit's voice. And so I can hear, for instance, picking up on that Spirit's voice, I can hear the voice of the parent saying, Jesus, we are not your true parents. God is the author of all of our lives. Our highest wish for you as a parent is to follow that voice of God. It will make us proud if you will follow God's voice, not simply our own. I can hear the free child saying, Abba, Father, I'm scared, but if I know you are with me, I can go wherever you will go. Stay with me, and I'll follow, only in your embrace. I can hear that peer group saying, this doesn't make any sense to us, Jesus. But you know what? Most of the things you've ever done in your ministry didn't make sense to us either. But it always proved itself to be true. A higher vision than we ourselves had. And so while we don't understand it all, we will trust where you go because we know that you know better than ourselves. We support you. And I can hear that pragmatist saying, I say get real, but bottom line, God is the only reality. If it is God calling, we follow. You don't have to know why God calls you. You simply have to know that God calls you. And I can hear that pessimist saying, yeah, we're going to die anyway, one way or the other. Far better to die following that voice you are convinced is God's than to live running away from it. And I can hear the hero voice saying, this does not match the prophecies of old, except that we knew that the Messiah would be higher than all of our prophets. You are doing that which we did not expect. And that's exactly what the Messiah would do. And I can hear the accuser voice. Rats, foiled again. Without the support of all those other voices, it makes the work of the accuser mighty hard. And when we begin to listen and resonate with the Spirit, it makes the voice of our own accuser mighty hard to be convincing anymore. And I can hear the voice of the true self. Not my will, but thine be done. But now, as it's sunk in 3 times, this deeper and deeper every time, I can also hear Jesus saying, your will has become my will. You've called. I've heard the music. I want to follow. And because he did that,